Hey y'all, so if I'm back again. Anytime Joe, Rory, and Mal get into it, here I go. So, we just gonna run through what happened real fast and then I'm gonna give my opinion of everything that's going on. So, this all started because Complex did a list, I think like last week or something like that, maybe, pretty much talking about the top hip hop media, I think, personalities, and Joe Button pretty much landed at number one, which I guess I would, for the most part, I would have to agree with him. Drink Champs, um, um, $1 million worth of game. That's, I'm saying, my personal list. But Joe was pretty much at number one. So Rory and Mal had a podcast. They did a pod. If y'all don't know, they have a podcast. And during this podcast, they talked about the list. Now, as soon as the segment starts off, and they say, "Well, look at like who was number one," and Maul said, "Well, the cat burglar himself, the thief, the thief, the thief, the thief." And Rory and them started laughing or whatever, and somebody was like, "Big Tegrity, Big Tegrity," and Rory was like, "Yeah, that's Big Teg, that's Big Teg," and it was like a few jokes and stuff like that, but it was pretty much, now Rory did say um that he felt like Joe deserved to be number one. Maul didn't say anything, but Rory was like he didn't really see anything wrong with that, him putting his bias aside and stuff like that. He thought that Joe should be number one, and pretty much it was just like some jokes that went back and forth about that. So then Joe went on his next pod and pretty much was like, to whom it concerns, and then pretty much went on a nice little rant about, like, I think like Charlemagne, the Breakfast Club, somebody else, and then talked about Warrior Mall. Now, did he say their name? No, but we know who he was talking about. And Joe pretty much, long story short, said that, like, if your name's not on the list, why are you even saying my name? And then coined them the bare minimum boys. Baby, I ain't gonna hold you. That was funny. When he said the bare minimum boys, I cracked the hell up, because that's hilarious to me for so many reasons. Um, then Rory, I guess something came out today or yesterday. I don't know. I think maybe yesterday. Rory and Mal podcast came out, and Rory pretty much responded saying that, like, Joe, I pretty much, and he said Joe's name. He was like, I'm not like going to sit here and play around and talk about to whom it concerns. I'm talking about you, Joe. I have always pretty much stayed, unbiased in this whole situation. I have not said your name. I have not ran around doing press runs talking about you. And I even said that you deserve to be on that list. So keep my name out your mouth pretty much and shut the fuck up. Like, don't talk about me and I won't talk about you. And yeah, so that's pretty much how Rory responded. And then Joe responded, because I just listened to his response. And let's see, Joe said a couple things. Joe said pretty much that, now he wouldn't say their name, so he called Rory Bear and then I guess Mall Minimum. But he pretty much was just like, I'm pretty much responding to what it is that y'all said about me. He tells a story about how he has seen Rory, and Rory had asked like for a lift to his car, like to the parking lot or whatever. And when he got into the car, how Rory was like, we didn't get 10 million, talk about $10 million for him and Maul's podcast, but we got close or whatever. And then Joe was like, well, I pretty much think that, like, you're lying. And then he was like, well, why do you think that? And he just said, I just, whatever, do you. So then he said a little bit after that is when you could see, now if y'all remember in the beginning, if you did watch Rory and Mal podcast, in the beginning they were in an actual studio setup, which I'm gonna touch on this later, but they were in the actual studio setup. Eventually you see the move from being in a studio to pretty much, I think like it's like Rory's house or something like that, but it's at somebody's house. I think it's Rory's house. And so Joe was like, so that pretty much confused me, like how y'all get $10 million, but now you're not doing it in the studio anymore. You're back at somebody's house doing it. And then, Joe said when he had talked to Rory, I guess, about that, or said that Rory said, I don't know if he said he talked to Rory about this or Rory just said it on the show, but pretty much it was like, oh, well, the reason why we're not in the building anymore is because they didn't want me, like, I guess, to bring my dog up there. And so Joe was like, well, if they give you close to $10 million, you would prefer to just be at home with your dog versus have your dog with you, and like would you would prefer to just leave the $10 million quote unquote studio and be at home with your dog versus like just sit at the studio and leave your dog at home. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to him. And then, you know, Joe just went in about a whole bunch of other stuff about how he felt like he was giving feedback, and, you know, he don't really care, you know, about what they do. He just felt like he was trying to give them some feedback. And he said that he loves Rory. He literally said, I love Bear, but your man Minimum, aka Mal, he said he pretty much won't stop talking about me. And so because y'all are together as a duo, as a group, when I respond, I'm going to be responding to both of y'all. Like, y'all are a group, y'all are an entity. So yes, I'm responding mostly to Mal, but I'm responding, you know, to y'all as an entity. So this is how I feel in general about the whole thing. If you guys have been watching any of my videos on Joe, Rory, and Mal, I have said this about 15,000 times. It is obvious. It has been obvious to me from the beginning. You can go back and watch my video. But I think it is even more obvious now as time has gone on that the problem between Joe, Rory, and Mal is really between Joe and Mal. I said from the very beginning, I think that with everything that happened, Rory and Joe can be cool, because regardless of the situation, I think, and I don't know what happened, but I think regardless of what happened, Rory can understand that what happened between them and Joe was on some business shit. It was some business shit that maybe they just didn't see eye to eye, some business shit that didn't really necessarily go right, but the personal, as far as the friendship was concerned, they can maintain that. Mal has always taken everything personally. Even if you go back and you watch their response video, watch the way that Rory talks about the situation versus the way Mal talks about the situation. Mal has felt very personal, and like I said, I don't know if that is because not, and I will give Mal the benefit of the doubt, I don't know if that's because maybe in Mal's head, him and Joe were like better friends than him and Rory, so his feelings are a little bit more hurt. But I've always said, it's clear to me that Mal is looking at everything with that Joe Budden podcast from a friend point of view, a personal point of view, and not necessarily a business point of view. So, when we talk about the whole response thing, I agree with Joe. I agree with Joe and Rory. Rory is right when he says that when it comes to, and I'm gonna be real, I'm subscribed to their YouTube page, but to be quite honest, I do not watch Rory Mal podcast. If I see like something that's like a big topic, I'll go on, like, and I don't talk about the whole thing. I'm talking about if they clip it out and it's like something real, like a popular topic that's going on, I might click on really fast to see what they say. But to be quite honest, I don't really last on there long. We'll get to that in a second. But from what I have seen, Rory is right in the sense of he has been very unbiased when it comes to the things about Joe. That's why I have always felt, even past the response video that Rory and Mal did, that I've always felt like Rory and Joe can probably figure it out, because it seems like to me Rory is able to move on. Yes, he still has his feelings. Yes, he still feels some type of way about whatever happened between him and Joe, but regardless of the situation, he can put his feelings about it to the side. To me, the biggest example of that is the slaughterhouse situation. Look at how Rory objectively looked at that situation with Slaughterhouse. It could see exactly where Joe was coming from, and how regardless of what Rory was saying, Mal just would not agree and just would not at all see it from Joe's point. I think that's one of many examples of showing how differently they really handle and look at the situation. Okay, so and going to Joe, I agree with Joe when Joe says like y'all are a tandem, y'all are a duo. So yes, with that whole situation with them talking about it, it really was more so Mal that was kind of going in, because this is the thing about it. This is how I look at it. And I just saw, which goes to, hold on real fast. Joe said in his response to like the second response, that because Rory was like, oh, I'm not going on a press run for 2 years talking about you, and Joe was like, let's be clear, a press run is when you're going around and you're doing a string of interviews and, you know, hopes to promote something, and then you constantly bringing up my name. To be fucking fair, I have seen multiple interviews. I just saw an interview that Mal did. I did not watch it. Again, I just watched the clip where he talked about Joe. I just saw a clip of Mal sitting on somebody else's podcast and calling Joe a thief. Now, this is how I look at it. Regardless of how us as the fans look at it, anybody on the outside look at it, if somebody is constantly calling you a thief and you really feel in your hearts of hearts that you're not a thief, you're not going to sit up there and take that shit lightly. It does not matter if whether it's true or not. If you as the person being accused of being a thief and you feel like in your hearts of hearts that's not true, you're never going to be okay with somebody walking around calling you a thief, calling you a thief, calling you a thief, calling you a thief. So I do think, and even if you go on Rory and Mal's like recent YouTube video and stuff of them like responding to Joe, you will see that most people will say in the comments, it's Mal. It's not Rory. It's Mal. Mal sits on his podcast. He goes and does other interviews. And I don't want to say he's constantly, but he does talk about Joe a decent amount. And he doesn't keep it cute and light. He don't just be like, oh, I don't want to talk about him, or, you know, I don't really want to talk. He'll say, I'm not saying his name, but he will sit there though for the next 10 to 15 minutes and either A, sit up there and call him a thief, call him a burglar, whatever, or whenever his name is brought up, a whole lot of fucking subs and all this other stuff is pretty much said about Joe. So, all of that to say back to the original point. Rory, unfortunately, you standing next to your mans, you probably going to get hit in the process. Granted, he did call them the bare minimum boys, but I do think that the majority of that smoke was for Mal. I'm telling you, look at what the fans are saying, even under Rory and Mal's video. It is Mal. Mal tends to, I feel like when it comes to Joe, always throwing subs, always throwing jabs, but then want to say that he don't care. And didn't want to sit up there like in the response just now, oh, I'm not even worried about that. I don't even care about what other people do. So if you don't care about what other people do, why are you constantly always talking about this man's name? Not to say that Joe don't be doing digs and stuff like that too, but if we're talking about between Rory and Mal, who talks the most shit about Joe, it's absolutely Mal. It's hands down Mal. So I feel like the reason why Joe and Rory will never get on a good page is because Mal is the one with the main issue. And my thing with Mal from the beginning that I've always said, and I stick to it to this day, if you not going to take him to court, you need to shut the up. If you not going to produce paperwork on the Rory and Mal podcast to show that he's a thief, if you not going to send cease and desist, if you not going to fucking take this nigga to civil court, I don't want to hear about it no more, because at this point, we're 2 years later. At this point, it comes off very clickbaity. No cap. It comes off real clickbaity, and it comes off very bitter. And you can be bitter as much as you want to, but don't ever let the audience see that. It's been 2 years. If you ain't going to pull up to this nigga Joe's house and fight him, if you ain't going to take him to court, or if you ain't going to pull up to Mika Scott and pull out the receipts and freaking show us, don't tell us, show us the paperwork, we don't care as the audience. Move the hell on and go about whatever the hell it is that you want to do. Now, let me say this about Joe for a second. Joe, you're full of shit. I do agree with Rory when he say, stop doing that, because even in his second response, you did the bare minimum. Stop playing games. And I'm just giving critique to all podcasters. Don't do that. I understand the whole thing of, I'm not trying to give them more light, but we know who you're talking about. So you might as well just be a real nigga and say they fucking name. You think they're going to sue you? I don't know. Are you not allowed to say their name or something like that? But you need to just be a boss. Like, I do agree with Rory when he say, be a grown-ass man and just say your name. Say that's how you feel. Say Rory and Mal, y'all sat on y'all podcast and y'all had a lot to say about me. When it comes down to it, y'all the bare minimum boys. Just be real and say about that. Don't stop trying to quote-unquote cloth it and hide it when we obviously know who you're talking about, because it's really fucking offensive to us as the viewers. It's really annoying. Yes, it's funny. It was funny when you call him bare, you call him minimum, but if we want some grown man shit, just say what the hell you gotta say. Call niggas out by names, and let's just leave it the hell at that, okay? So that's how I feel about that. When it comes to the actual Rory and Mal podcast, and why the bare minimum boys is hilarious to most people, is because, to be fair, and this is being objective, because I like Rory, I necessarily care for Mal, but but it's not that It's not that I don't like Mal. I just think he needs to adjust his attitude a lot of times when it comes to things. But I do want both of them to be successful. I think everybody deserves to be successful in whatever it is that they're doing. But I do agree, and I find that the Bare Minimum Boys thing is funny, is because Joe's main point when y'all all broke up and stuff like that is, and I think, please let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that Joe was trying to say that neither Rory or Mal truly deserved ownership in the JBP because they didn't really do anything, which is why I had said in my first video about all of this that if all y'all are doing is showing up and potting, y'all do not deserve ownership, because what other work is being put in if all y'all are doing is showing up? If y'all not putting in y'all own money, if y'all not going outside and getting deals, if y'all not mingling and dingling to make sure that, you know, you getting certain marketing, certain promotion and things like that, why do you think that you deserve anything? You pretty much, I know they don't like being called employees, but that's pretty much in the capacity that y'all were working. Y'all were just getting paid as if y'all was owners, but the capacity in which y'all worked in, it seems like, according to Joe, that y'all didn't really do much. Now, if we look at y'all podcast now, I said this. I had this conversation with my boyfriend. When they moved from the set, talk about Rory Mal. When they moved from the set back to somebody's house, to me, that showed that something was shaky right at that moment. I was like, okay. From the outside looking in, it came off to me, kind of like Joe said, that y'all are obviously not doing that good. It seems to me like y'all bit off a little bit more than y'all can chew in the beginning because of all of the, you know, automatic engagement, you know, that y'all was getting from the whole situation. People, you know, on they fuck Joe little movement and stuff, and the fan base sort of kind of splitting or whatever. And so y'all felt like, okay, we can do this. But it seems to me as that probably just became too much and y'all probably really couldn't sustain, because I don't know what y'all actual podcast numbers do, but if I'm looking at y'all YouTube numbers, y'all don't really tend to do crazy. I think that y'all have underperformed in YouTube views the way that y'all probably, like, y'all expectations of what y'all YouTube views will be probably probably did not hit that, probably is not hitting that. Maybe now, because y'all probably understand like where y'all sit within the market, but I think in the beginning y'all probably jumped pretty damn high, which is why y'all had that studio, and then probably realized we can't sustain this. And that's why not to take nobody's side, but that's why I'm kind of sort of starting to believe a little bit more what Joe said about y'all not really doing anything behind the scenes, because it does come off as if y'all thought that y'all could just take the audience that y'all had at JBP, go off and do y'all own thing, and it would kind of just be the same thing at Joe's. But now it's y'all two are literally responsible for everything. It's not even split between 3 people. Let's just say y'all really was helping. It's not split between 3 or between 4 if we count parts. It is now solely on you two guys to now grow this platform and make it bigger than what it is. And that probably was a whole lot harder, and is a whole lot harder than y'all probably really even gave it credit for. You know what I mean? So, if you want my personal opinion on why I feel like Rory and Mal don't do as well probably as people say, or maybe as well as they should. And this is somebody, like I said, I don't watch y'all all the time. I am subscribed. I have watched stuff here and there. I mostly just watch y'all clips, but I feel like I have seen enough for me to have my own opinion on that. I personally feel like it's a combination of things. I think one of the main things, to be quite honest, is that y'all don't have enough oomph. Like, it seems to me as if y'all don't really care about the topics that y'all talk about. And there's a way to not care about the topics you talk about, but still make it entertaining. Like, let's use Kid Fury and Crystal for the read. They say every damn time them hot topics start, they don't give up about none of them damn stories. Most of us don't. But at least the way that they engage with the content and with the stories, it's in an entertaining way. It comes off at least like they care, or at least they care in the moment enough to give us a little bit of something. When you guys talk about topics, it don't seem like y'all truly care. It don't seem like you're really interested. And it's not very engaging, to be quite honest. It comes off like a regular, chill, lax ass conversation. And I've always said that for a long time, it took me a while to even like Mal, because I felt like when I first started watching the JBP, which is after Everyday Struggle went off, Mal confused me because it always seemed like he either sat there and said nothing or had little to nothing to say at all about the topic. Or when he did talk about the topic, it was very blah. So when I seen that, okay, Rory and Mal are going to do their own podcast, to me it was interesting because I'm like, Rory can't carry the pod by himself. Yet again, not trying to make this the blame Mal show, but I'm just being real about it. I didn't understand how Rory could carry a pod by himself. At least on the JBP, Mal could have more of a leniency to not really say as much and not really be as engaging, because he had Joe, he had Rory, and he even had Parks, honestly, to kind of fall back on. So you on a 4-man team, so you can, like they will always talk about basketball stuff, like, you know, sometimes Mal would have to like carry the ball or whatever, or he get off a good quote unquote shot, like they said. It is really a basketball team, the way that y'all used to make the analogy. So you going from a 4-man team, so if one of the 4 people is injured, then you got 3 other people you can back up on. But when it's just you and one other person, you gotta carry your weight. You gotta carry your weight. It can no longer be like, I just sit here and give, no cap, the bare minimum and just expect people to show up. Y'all don't come off, y'all don't engage with y'all topics, y'all don't really engage. Y'all not engaging or entertaining to me in the way that y'all speak about y'all topics. That's just the honest to God truth to me. What else I have? I also feel as if Rory and Mal have a lot of like industry connections, I feel like, and this was even the thing on the JBP when it was on there, like y'all are friends with a lot of people. So I feel like when it comes to like being honest, to be quite honest about a lot of things, y'all, I don't want to say that y'all are not being honest. It don't come off like y'all being honest a lot of times about certain topics, because we know y'all affiliations with certain people. Mal, for the most part, it comes off to the audience like you will never give a true blue honest opinion on anything when it comes to Rock Nation, when it comes to Jay, when it comes to anything that's connected to that conglomerate. You're probably always going to play more on the safe side because that's your brother. Understandably, that's your brother and stuff. But it also comes off like that with Rory. It seems like both of y'all, because y'all have friends, and that's probably part. Listen, let me say something. That's why Joe for years didn't do well in the industry, because he didn't get along with people. But that ended up being like a good thing for him, because he's now at least a little bit free to kind of say what he wants to say. It don't come off like y'all really be wanting to ruin, I don't want to say ruin y'all relationships, but it don't come off like y'all be wanting to be honest about a lot of the topics that come up, about a lot of the people in certain situations that come through, because of y'all being connected to them. Whether y'all being connected to them through music, through behind the scenes stuff, it just don't come off like y'all, it comes off like y'all want to protect all y'all relationships. And that don't necessarily make for a good show all the damn time. Okay? And I just feel like in general, I feel like Rory and Mal, y'all have to find a new formula. Because if y'all continue in the formula that y'all working in now with just y'all two and just being, it's not gonna work. Y'all are gonna continuously be stagnant, or y'all going to fall off. I will use Joe for example. Well, this is how I feel. I feel like this whole situation gives me, like I always say, don't take the funniest person or the most favorite person or the best 2 people of a show and give them their own show. That rarely freaking works, because it's not just though that person or those two people. It's them in the context of everything. So to be fair, when Rory Mal left, and Joe initially, before he got Ice and Ish permanently, when Joe was just doing a show, like he did a show with Savion, he did a show with somebody else, that shit was not entertaining at all. And when Ice and Ish first got on the show, it was not entertaining at all. Because yes, and if, to be quite honest, if Joe was to do a podcast by himself, it would not be entertaining, because Joe thrives on having other people around him to bounce off of. Joe sitting in a room by himself going crazy, I think he even said that's how he started off, it does not work. So it's like I said, it's like if you took Joe from the JBP and just put him in a podcast by himself, that shit would not work, because he needs other people to fucking bounce off of. I think the same thing is for Rory and Mal. Y'all two can't do it by yourselves. Y'all need another dynamic. Either y'all gotta bring more, or y'all gotta have a different dynamic. Having the fake ass Parks off of camera and the fake ass other girl Parks off camera, that's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. So, all that to say, I hope both of y'all don't say nothing to each other no more. And honestly, like I said, Mal and Joe, just leave each other alone. Don't say nothing about each other. And I feel like if that's the case, Rory and Joe could probably figure it out. And if that's all that comes salvage from this relationship, that's all that comes salvage from this relationship. But I will say, Joe, if you're going to keep saying Rory and Mal's name, say their name. Don't bullshit it. Don't half-ass it. Say their name. Say their name. Say their damn name, Destiny's Child. And Mal, you'll have to work that out with a therapist. And Rory, hopefully you can find a way to not feel like you in the middle. That's it. Get in the comments, tell me what y'all think. I'm not bad.